Summer can be such a tricky time for parents of differently wired kids. Finding ways to keep kids active and learning over the break, whether at home or on vacation, it can be hard. Fat Brain Toys is a family-run business that has been curating and creating quality toys, games, and gifts that both entertain and educate for more than 20 years. Almost all of Fat Brain's toys and games are screen-free, and what I love about them is they encourage kids to get creative and explore the world around them through open-ended play. I'm especially drawn to this really cool product called Mr. Bendy. It's a sturdy yet bendable figure with posable arms, legs, and eyes. It comes with wax bendy sticks that you can use to turn Mr. Bendy into really anything, an astronaut, a guitarist, a pirate. And you can play it as a game with the sand timer and game tokens, or you can set those aside and just engage in open-ended play to explore things like spatial reasoning, creativity, and observation skills. I think what I love most about Mr. Bendy is it offers an easy and fun way for parents to connect with and support their neurodivergent kids in exploring social and emotional learning. Also, you know that I love a mission-driven company. Well, Fat Brain Toys is made up of families who want to make life better for other families. It was founded out of the desire of two parents to provide better play experiences for their kids, so their aim is to support you in doing the same. Fat Brain is a new sponsor of Tilt Parenting, and they've put together a collection of toys for our families. Go to www.fatbraintoys.com/tilt to get 10% off all the items in the Tilt collection when you use the code TILT at checkout, and find out for yourself why Fat Brain Toys is a smarter way to play. I'm Debbie Reber, and welcome to Tilt Parenting, a podcast featuring interviews and conversations aimed at inspiring, informing, and supporting parents raising differently wired kids. I get a lot of questions from listeners looking for help navigating complex situations with their kids. So in this new mini episode format, I'll be answering listener questions, sometimes all on my own, sometimes with one of the parent coaches from the Differently Wired Club, and sometimes with an author or expert who's become a trusted resource. Think of these bite-sized, short and sweet parent-leaning episodes as a quick check-in. One question, one answer, featuring strategies, tips, or reframes that can support you in your parenting world. To submit a question for a Parent Lean In episode, just go to tiltparenting.com/lean-in. That's tiltparenting.com/LEANIN. All right, here's today's episode. Hey everybody, it's Debbie here from Tilt Parenting. I am joined today by Margaret Webb. Margaret is not just a dear friend of mine. She was my very first parenting coach. She's also the lead parent coach in my Differently Wired Club, where she beautifully supports parents in that community. She is also the author of the wonderful new book, A Hero's Journey in Parenting, Parenting the Child You Didn't Expect When You Were Expecting, which we recently talked about on this show. So definitely go check that out if you haven't listened to that episode. All of that to say, welcome, Margaret. Thanks so much for being here.
I am very excited to be here, as always.
Okay, well, let's dive right into the question for today. The question is, do you have any tips on getting the most out of your time with a developmental pediatrician? My child is 7 years old, and we've been seeing a developmental pediatrician twice a year since he was 4. We get at least an hour with her when we see her, and she's been available by phone when needed. Our son is fairly resistant to speaking during appointments, so we end up doing a lot of talking in front of him. This doesn't always feel good. Sometimes we leave feeling like we haven't addressed the scope of our challenges, even though our developmental pediatrician is very receptive. We plan to move forward with a neurological evaluation early in the summer to understand if he is autistic. He's been diagnosed with anxiety and avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. Occupational and play therapies have been unsuccessful for us. Okay, so we're going to talk about getting the most out of your time with a developmental pediatrician. We're going to take a quick break and we'll get to our answers. As a longtime runner, hydration is something I've always had to consider, especially in the hot, humid summers of New York. But staying hydrated is important for everyone, and it's not just about drinking water. Being optimally hydrated means optimizing your body's fluid ratios, including electrolytes. In fact, electrolyte deficiency or imbalance can cause headaches, cramps, fatigue, brain fog, and weakness. Element is a zero-sugar electrolyte drink mix designed for better hydration. Each pack provides a strong dose of electrolytes without any sugar or artificial colors or any other dodgy ingredients. And while Element has found an enthusiastic community in everyone from Olympic athletes to special forces to functional nutrition experts, It's also perfect for moms, your everyday exercise enthusiasts like me, folks who are fasting or those following keto, low-carb, whole food diets, really anyone on a mission to restore health through hydration. Element's formula was created with a science-backed electrolyte ratio of sodium, potassium, and magnesium. And again, no sugar. And because I'm a researcher, I wanted to better understand the benefits of having optimal electrolyte levels. And there are so many, including reducing muscle cramps, promoting better sleep, and supporting better digestion, just to name a few. Get your free Element sample pack with any purchase at drinklmnt.com/tilt. Also, try the new Element Sparkling, a bold 16-ounce can of sparkling electrolyte water. There are a lot of moving pieces and big transitions happening in my world, and I'm finding myself really relying on my routines these days. Because when there are so many changes happening that are beyond my control, consistency in a few aspects of my life has been absolutely critical. That's one of the reasons why I like Ritual's Synbiotic Plus, a 3-in-1 supplement with clinically studied prebiotics, probiotics, and a postbiotic to support a balanced gut microbiome, as it's become a regular part of my morning routine. One minty capsule first thing while sitting down with my laptop, and I can get on with my day knowing that I'm doing something just for me and my well-being. And the capsule itself is a delayed release, which helps it survive the harsh conditions of the upper GI tract for delivery to the colon, which is exactly where we want it to go. But there's a lot more I like about Ritual too. As a company, they're committed to sustainability, using scientific tools to select lower carbon packaging, prioritize sustainably sourced ingredients, and set ambitious climate goals. And they're a female-founded B Corp, meaning they are holding themselves accountable long-term to not only think about their company's financial health, but also the health of people and our planet. I love all of that. There's no more shame in your gut game. Synbiotic Plus and Ritual are here to celebrate, not hide your insides. Get 25% off your first month for a limited time at ritual.com/tilt. Start Ritual or add Synbiotic Plus to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/tilt for 25% off. Okay, so Margaret, I'd love to hear from you first on tips you have on getting the most out of your time with a developmental pediatrician. What came up for you when you first heard this question?
Yeah, so the first thing that came up was a curiosity around, is it just you, or are you going with a partner or somebody who, because it said we, and so if it is you and your partner or you and somebody else, it might be an opportunity to spend the first 20 minutes, 30 minutes where your child is in the room where they're being evaluated, or the developmental pediatrician can do their exam, or the consult, or whatever that looks like. But then you have, another person is able to take the child out so that you can have a conversation based on, there's talking in front of him, which isn't feeling great. So keeping that in mind and seeing if there's any flexibility, any possibility to have somebody to take him out so that you can discuss things that you want to, where you're not feeling like you need to, kind of cushion things or be careful about things that you're sharing. So there's that part. And regardless of what it is, I recommend so highly to write down and spend a little bit of time before each, whether it's a developmental pediatrician or, whatever kind of expert appointment you're going to, I would take time to write down what your intentions are, what your wants are, what your needs are, what your curiosities are, what your noticings are, and get those down in writing. Because so often when we get into those appointments or those meetings, we are, especially if our child is there, we can get distracted, we can lose focus, we can feel like it's not that important. But if we take that time ahead of time, then we can narrow it down to, like, these are really important things that I do want to discuss. It sounds like this particular person is open to outside communication. So you might email them those questions or the noticings, things that you want to, and say, these are some things that we want to talk about. during our session so that there's clarity around that. And if you're able to do that, well, and even if you're not able to email them, I would definitely put them in writing, print them out, and hand them to them, and allow them to have a couple minutes to scan through, so that even if your child is there, you can talk about them by, like, oh, this is in response to, your like first point. And then you can have a conversation where you're not having to sit there and explain everything in front of your child, where you're both looking at the same information, but doing so where you're bypassing all of the conversational explanation of where it's coming from. And so taking that and just going from there. I feel like that's the most helpful, to not only beforehand get clear, but then during. And then again, you said that you've got somebody who's willing to talk afterwards, or to talk outside of that, to, not take advantage of their time. But if there was something that you forgot to mention that you think is important in guiding the decision-making about how to move forward with your child, I would definitely reach out and share that with them. Chances are, if you spend time ahead of time, that's not as likely to happen. And so you're taking care of that in advance. But if there is something where you get in the car and you're like, shoot, I forgot to mention this, let them know, because they want to help you.
Yeah. Great advice. And I had a lot of, Margaret and I didn't consult ahead of time. So I have similar things: keep notes, bring in notes, list of goals in advance, specific questions. Thinking about this as like almost a business meeting,
Yep.
where you don't leave a business meeting without your next steps, right? But I'll just say that as I read this question, I could feel that sense of like walking out the door and saying goodbye, and inside your mind going, but wait, I didn't, but wait, this, and then, but we still walk out the door anyway.
Yep.
I have been in that situation so many times. So just want to encourage you so much to not leave the meeting without the answers that you need. And which is why being prepared in advance can be so helpful. I wanted to throw out a couple things. One that came up for me in reading this question is there's a tool from understood.org. It's called Take Note. I'll have a link in the show notes page. I actually did an episode with Amanda Morin years ago when Understood first introduced this tool, but it's an approach or a tool that they've created to help people notice, observe, talk, and engage, basically to track. They actually have a downloadable PDF where you can kind of track specific behaviors and what you're observing, so that when you go into a meeting, you've got it all laid out. It's a tracker tool. Again, I'll share it in the resources for this, but that can really help you, if you keep like a tracking log or a diary over the course of a month or something, to really have some concrete examples of specific things that are concerning for you or that you want to make sure you touch upon. So I wanted to share that resource. And then I also just wanted to throw out there that not all developmental pediatricians are created equally, and not all really have a detailed understanding of kind of the latest in where we are with understanding and recognizing neurodivergence in our kids. So sometimes there might be a tendency for more of a wait and see approach. And then as a parent, you're like, but I'm seeing this and I'm worried about this. And, well, let's check in 6 months. And that might not feel good for you if you have this really strong gut intuition that, no, there's something going on here. And you don't want to, spend that time just waiting and seeing. So a lot of us, maybe this is just me, so I'm generalizing, but we can feel very connected and attached to these professionals that we have relationships with. We don't want to hurt feelings or egos. But if you have a strong intuitive hit that your needs aren't being met, or this expert person you're meeting with isn't really getting it or fully seeing what's going on, I would also explore making a switch and researching, asking around, and trying to find someone who is really neurodivergent affirming in that they are not just looking to diagnose disorders, right? But they are really have a deeper understanding about kind of, again, the latest in neuroscience and the latest information we have about the complicated ways in which things like ADHD and autism show up in our kids. And I want to give a shout out to Doctors Donna Henderson and Sarah Whalen. They wrote a wonderful book called Is This Autism? I had them on the show. Their book is phenomenal, but they really have taken the criteria for autism and gone much deeper and explaining different ways that those criteria can and should be interpreted that are often missed by even people who are doing neuropsychs to assess for autism. So things are moving quickly in this field. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well. So trust your gut. Don't worry about hurting people's feelings, and be as prepared as possible, and don't leave without getting the answers that you want. Margaret, do you have anything to add before we wrap up?
I'm so glad that you said that about not hurting the feelings, because I've got a whole, section in my book about the experts not always being the expert in our kids. Like, we are the experts, and we can go and we can consult with those who are, quote unquote, the experts in their field, and we can take their information in and we can allow that to help us to make decisions. But like, being mindful of who we're handing our power over to is really important for us as parents to trust our guts and to trust what you were saying of like, okay, like this is what I'm seeing, and I don't want to wait 6 months to do X, Y, or Z. It feels more important, and allowing yourself to advocate for that and say, this is what I'm seeing and this is what I'm wanting. And to feel very clear and confident and empowered in those decisions, as opposed to just handing over power. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for submitting that question. I hope this feedback was helpful for you. Good luck as you navigate this. And thanks again, Margaret, for joining me today.
Thank you. Great question.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Tilt Parenting Podcast. To learn more about the resources mentioned in this Parent Lean In episode, go to the extensive show notes page on tiltparenting.com. To submit a question for a future episode, just go to tiltparenting.com/leanin. That's tiltparenting.com/LEANIN. If you're looking for personal support from me and connection with the phenomenal community of parents raising neurodivergent kids, join us in the recently rebooted Differently Wired Club. The new Differently Wired Club can help you cultivate the positive shifts you're hoping for. Go to tiltparenting.com/club to learn more. The Tilt Parenting Podcast is hosted by me, Debbie Reber, author of Differently Wired and the founder of Tilt Parenting. To support this show, please join my Patreon campaign, where you can set up a small monthly contribution. Just go to patreon.com/tiltparenting to learn more. If you want to follow Tilt on social media, go to @tiltparenting on Instagram and Facebook. Lastly, please take a minute to leave a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. That helps this show stay visible so others can find it more easily. And that's all for this week. Stay safe, stay well, and take good care. And for more information about any of the parenting resources Tilt offers, visit tiltparenting.com.
If you're a parent, I invite you to join us at the Mindful Mama podcast, where it's all about becoming a less irritable, more joyful parent. With sometimes hilarious and always thought-provoking experts and friends, at Mindful Mama, we know that you cannot give what you do not have. And when you have calm and peace within, then you can give it to your children. I'm Hunter Clark Fields, and I can't wait to see you there. Listen in to the Mindful Mama podcast.